Hey folks, it's Ray with Taste Radio. Right now I'm supremely honored to be sitting down with Peter Rahal. Peter, great to see you.
Great to see you, Ray. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. Living in the great city of Chicago still?
No, I'm actually living in the great city of New York.
New York City. Okay, so why'd you make the move? I thought Chicago was where you were born and bred.
Yeah. Well, I moved to once I was done with RXbar, I moved to Miami to sort of reset, and then uh, the location of where I was going to live next was based on where was the best place to build my next business, um, and I landed on New York.
You know, Peter, the first time, and I think the last time I saw you, the first time I met you and the last time I saw you was at Nosh Live in New York City in 2018, and we were a few months removed from the sale of RXbar to Kellogg. I found you to be, and I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, I found you to be a bit more introverted than I expected. Maybe I was misreading it. I know you were just coming off stage at Nosh Live, but
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm not. I'm definitely very introverted. My motivations. I don't really want to be famous or anything. So, um, I don't really want the line. I never wanted the limelight. I was, wanted to build a great business, great brand, focus on the fundamentals, and sort of like success is an outcome of that. So probably when you met me, like, like our number was public, so I probably was a bit of shock with the amount of attention I was getting. And yeah, probably, yeah, I mean, yeah, I never did that. I'd never started entrepreneurship for it. I wanted to be successful. But yeah, it was sort of like part of the territory I didn't really expect. Um, and yeah, it just doesn't, so I'm not motivated by it. But it's like part of the territory. And I actually don't think I'm good at being sort of the face or charismatic. So I don't really spend my time doing that, to be honest. But yeah, as people want to hear from the CEO, so it's part of the territory. But yeah, it's not part of my motivation, I guess, is the gist.
do you feel like you're kind of being forced into it now, given that there's so much hype and interest around David?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, I would say, yeah, I kind of have to. It's just part of the territory.
Before we hopped on the mics, I've done this once in the past, and it worked pretty well. Framing a conversation using a series of true or false questions, and as I mentioned, all the success that you've had since 2013. So I think we kind of talked about this already, but I'll ask it anyway. True or false? You've become comfortable with success.
True. And I would say, like, I think I'm blessed that I don't care what people think, but then I deeply do at the same time. Um, so like I really want people to respect me, but like in generally I don't care what people think, which it's a bit of a paradox, but um I think as an entrepreneur it's really important because it's if you really are preoccupied with being viewed as successful or being viewed a certain way, I think it influences your decisions and it influences how you think and operate in a very unhealthy way. Um, so I'm comfortable with it, yes.
And is it something learned, or is it something experienced versus something that you were expecting, or versus not expecting?
I think I was born this way, to be honest. Um, yeah, I think I was born this way, and I think and then as you go through the journey, you get more conditioned to it, like because you're just going to get criticisms, everyone's going to have an opinion, so you just can't have those bother you, um, and you can't please everybody. So um, yeah, so I think I was born this way, but then certainly going through the journey as an entrepreneur, you you have no choice, I think.
Fair enough. RXbar, quite a successful brand. I think a lot of folks might say, well, RXbar was the right brand at the right place at the right time. That's why it worked. True or false? Is that the reason it worked?
Uh, Partially, I would say false. And because, oh, I, in 2013, 14, and 15, there actually was a ton of competitors that were the same sort of product type, like an egg white based uh, protein bar that was, dates and egg whites, like same sort of concept. And none of them escaped. None of them passed 1 million in sales. None of them really got beyond their little city. And I remember, Jared and I, we would always see these people, like these copycats emerge, and um, so it was really a combination of like right timing, but also like a ton of good decisions, a ton of will. Like it wasn't an accident, right? Like, and I actually think RXbar should have been a smaller business if it wasn't for the team we had and the decisions we made. Um, we were like one of the few brands that CrossFit into mainstream. We're one of the few brands that really like transcended paleo into just the clean label movement. So I would say like a partial, true and false.
Took a lot of hard work. You've talked about the value of hard work quite a bit. True or false? Hard work means working all the time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, true. Yeah, true. And I think you have to work. Um, it has to consume you, right? So it's maybe not necessarily like execution, like always on email, um, but you have to be obsessed and work like intellectually and emotionally thinking about it all the time. I think, um, yeah, like David, for example, it's like it's the only thing on my plate, really. Like, and so yes, true.
Only thing on your plate except your impending nuptials.
Yeah,
Related to working all the time. If you're working all the time, you can't really take a vacation. Uh, I had come across an article in which you had said you still don't need a fucking vacation. True or false? Vacations are not part of your purview.
yeah. I don't really. Yeah, they're not. Like, I think like what the weekend is a vacation, really, when you think about it. So, like, I don't have any motivation to go anywhere right now. And the thing is, like, a vacation, at least at this stage of where I'm at, like, it actually causes more stress.
Why is that?
Well, because I got to be present. Like, I'm going to be checking my email. I'm going to be stressed that I'm not in the office or not present. So it defeats the purpose. So like I think there's a right time for vacation, or really I think just making the weekends those are important. I mean, all of this depends on where you're at, or like your business life cycle or your personal life cycle. So like our Bar was very intense, and I was a very committed leader. So like never made sense. Even after our Bar, like I tried to vacation, but it just doesn't do it for me. I don't know. And it's about motivation, really. Like I just not motivated by like chilling chilling by the pool, or like I don't know. I just like output. So
Yeah, well,
it's like I think it's about family too. Like I don't have a family, so I think now that I have a son, like I think it's maybe a better time. But I don't know. I think basically like vacation's overrated.
fair enough. I mean, I think at a certain point, you've had enough vacation. I've been on vacation for, well, the last few years, I really haven't been on like a vacation where I'm just completely not working. But I guess like after 4 or 5 days, the question is like, why do you need more? Maybe that's just a thing that you and I feel, and other people are listening to this and being like, those guys are just absolutely out of their minds.
Yeah, and honestly, it's just each individual's their own. I think there's a good rationale for you know time away and a sabbatical of some sort, to each their own. I just know like I'm not like trying to escape. I never happened. So
There's a great social media series that follows small businesses, specifically small restaurants, and the interviewer is always talking to the owners about the history of the business and what makes them special or unique or differentiated. And I was really amazed by this one owner of a sandwich shop. I forget. I think I want to say it's in Cincinnati, and he had taken a vacation for the first time in 9 years. So they did a virtual interview. Typically, he does the interviews on site at the restaurant, but he did a virtual interview. And he was even thinking about leaving his vacation and coming back just for this interview. And the guy was like, no, 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 just please enjoy yourself. But one of the things he had said in the conversation that really struck me is that he had been taught, and he lives this, that a leader always eats last. Would you agree with that? True or false? A leader always eats last.
Yeah, I would agree with the idea, and it's basically like a servant leadership. Um, it's just, I think it's the most effective leadership style. Um,
Did you say servant leadership?
yeah.
I've never heard that term before. What does it mean?
Well, I mean, it means like a good. It's basically you eat last. Like your job is to serve the people, um, and protect them. Like good leaders serve each other. They're protective. They break down barriers. It's really like bottoms up, not top down. Um, they micromanage, meaning they get in the weeds. They help solve problems. Then they get out of the way, and they're very present, right? So they're here to help. So that's always been like my natural sort of leadership style. And yeah, so that philosophy is just leaders eat last. Like good leaders eat last. Um, yeah, yeah. So I would agree.
Well, just to follow up on that, you said you micromanage, or you had when you were with RXbar. Is that still something you do and will do with David?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think like micromanagement has a sort of a negative sort of association, but too much micromanagement is a problem. Like it is important for any leader to get into the details if it's called for. So if there's a problem, you need to like go in, dive in, and actually like understand the details. What's important is getting out. Like once that's done, is not just staying there. So it's like you got good leaders got to flex between micromanagement and macro management, right? Like you can't stay too much at the macro. You got to, and you can't stay too much at the micro. You got to like really understand when to go back and forth between those two things.
When is the problem too small, though? I mean, how do you know?
You know, based on how impactful it is. Like I think in general, there's like 100 ways to do something. So it has to be some measure like how important you have to have a good sense of how important it actually is. So anything with product, with people, with brand, service, customers, like if there's a serious problem, like that's worthy of micromanagement. I would say. But I think as leaders, you got to use good judgment, and it doesn't mean you're like a bully coming in and sort of pushing, but it's just making sure that the right things get the appropriate attention.
One of the most right things you ever did was to rebrand and repackage RXbar. I recall it was the Winter Fancy Food Show in San Francisco. I think it was 2014, January of 2014. And I had seen the old packaging for RXbar, and I saw the new one, and I was just like, this is incredible. This is the best packaging I've ever seen in my life. It just stands out. It's very clear. It communicates. It communicates so many things with a limited amount of information. So true or false, great packaging is the best form of marketing.
True. Um, and because in our business, the packaging is like it's the presentation and the communication of your offering. Um, and you always want your packaging to do all the work for you. So yeah, it's the pinnacle in good marketing, I would say.
RXbar and David, however, have very, very different packaging. One is very clear about the ingredients. The other is very clear about the most important ingredients, or at least the most important attributes of the bar. David calls out 28 grams of protein, 150 calories, and 0 grams of sugar.
Yeah. So nutrition is generally pretty complicated. I think there's not sort of we're all individual humans. We all have different needs. We all have different stomachs, different goals, different beliefs. And so what happens in the sort of abstract definition of like what is healthy, what is good for me, you get these sort of hacks that people will develop or that will get popular. And like one hack is like paleo, for example. So the hack is basically if my ancestors didn't eat it's not good for me. Um, and that's just a shortcut to really define what is good. And I think there's certainly some truth to it, but obviously it's more complicated than that. Um, and so you see this with like seed oils too. Like seed oils are bad, and it's just this binary thing. And it's like probably a good hack because consuming oil, too much oil in general, like the energy density, it causes for overconsumption of calories, which is a problem, right? Like so you get these hacks that help you. Like paleo helped you eat whole real foods. That is generally good. You eat a balanced diet. And then seed oils helps you not overconsume calories. It's generally good. They're good hacks, but I think my point is like to just blanket ingredients or blanket certain things is good or bad based on those hacks is it not a sophisticated approach really. So I think with building David, we don't want to succumb to those sort of hacks that ultimately move they're become like basically they're trendy, right? Like they come and go. And that's a very vulnerable position for a brand to be around. And I saw that in our RXbar was like our early adopters were moving to keto and they had totally abandoned us. And it's like, we just spent all this time building this position and now the world's changed and we can't change. So that's with that lesson, I was like, all right, well, we have to base things that have real durability, that are based on evidence that we know are true. And that's why it's like the macronutrients, right? Like those are really, really important. Like we know calories matter. We know protein matters. We know sugar needs to be under control or, spiking your blood sugar is not a positive thing generally. So that's, because as I call myself an early adopter of nutrition, I was always very confused as I was following my journey. Was like, all right, like 2 years ago, it was like eat fish. Now fish causes mercury. Like don't eat fish. And it's like eat 6 small meals a day. Now starve yourself. Dairy good, dairy bad. And it's like there's no source of truth. And so I just found it so difficult as a consumer to like understand. And you think about all the brands in our space, like there's these windows of opportunity of real demand, and they build brands around those things, and they get great growth. Then those things move, and it's just from a business perspective, it's just not a prudent thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying makes a ton of sense. That trying to build a brand around a trend, a fad, or diet typically never works, and may work for a limited amount of time, and then you got to figure something else out. But one of the most genius aspects of RXbar to me was that you were able to acquire someone's trust relatively easily because you were very clear about the ingredients on the front of pack. Again, it's a little different with David in that, if someone wants to know the ingredients, they got to turn the package around, lift up the flap, and find out what's one thing, what's the other thing. Maybe you'll have to Google a couple things just to know what you're eating. And it makes me wonder, how are you going to acquire a consumer's trust when they don't necessarily know some of the ingredients, especially because people are looking at that nutrition facts label a lot more closely than they had in the past. So, true or false, to acquire a consumer, you must first acquire their trust.
True. Yeah, for sure. And I think, back on, so it's like in the protein in the bar space, or like I just say what is healthy, there's sort of like a continuum. There's like there's the left and there's the right. The left basically says your ingredients matter more than anything. And then the right's basically like No, nutritional facts are more important than your ingredients. So those are like the two philosophies. And I think like when you think about a processed food, like a highly processed food, like any snack bar, um, you you want, I would think a better position is one where your nutritional facts are everything. Um, because it's sort of an oxymoron to have um, a processed food with clean, like the paleo position, right? It's like paleo people are eating boiled eggs and nuts, right? Like that's what they should be eating. So, but to answer your question, yeah, trust is everything. Like that's I think for not just consumers, but for everyone and every stakeholder in the business.
Yeah, and I think how you treat consumers tells a lot about how they're able to trust you. So that communication is a really important aspect of building that trust. And customer service, however, is and can be quite expensive. It can be quite time consuming. But true or false, the investment in customer service will always pay off.
True, unequivocally. Um, I like business fundamentals, and I think one of our strategies and my personal strategies is like a satisfied customer is the best business strategy. So um,
I'm going to write that down.
it's just so good because it's true. It's like if you just turns out if you just make customers happy, even ones that are upset with you, it all works out. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs make a huge mistake of just looking at customer service and call it consumer service as like an expensive burden or line item that's inefficient. Um, I think they're making a grave mistake, and it might seem daunting, but it is. You want to scale the unscalable, as some say, and it's yeah, it's you can tell a lot of consumer brands have shitty customer service because when we respond, they're sort of shocked. Like it's actually an uncompetitive market when you think about other like in America, people's customer service experience with other brands. I don't think it's that good. Like it's like it's offshored or like no management, like bad bots trained on bad SOPs. So yeah, it's back to the fundamental thing. It's like you want to satisfy customers the best business strategy, um, and then like we are in the consumer goods business. So like two things you better do right is like serve the consumer and make great goods for them.
Yeah, and make them accessible. I think there's something to be said about David as a great product for people who may not have access to nutrition or better nutrition and convenient nutrition. It's hard, though. It's hard to make good food accessible and affordable, unfortunately, for a lot of different reasons. But true or false, your goal should always be to make accessible, affordable food.
True. Yeah, I think the market's too competitive anyway. You have to. So,
How do you mean?
well, I don't think you. There's just too many options for people. So if you don't make it accessible, you're going to lose. And if you don't make it affordable, someone else is going to take your place. So I think the inherent nature of the market will actually force you to do that.
But what happens when your ingredients are expensive? I would think that, what I'm seeing in David is not inexpensive.
It's very expensive, but we still, we're going to try to get it everywhere. And have as competitive pricing as we can afford. And it's like actually the way consumers look at price in the protein bar category and protein in general, even with meals, is really calculated on how much protein I'm getting. So like protein by dollar is a sort of subconscious like that communicates value. So from that perspective, we're the probably the most competitive option.
Based on this price per gram of protein.
Yeah, for sure.
I think about your journey, Peter. And as I'm doing my research and doing some background work, I keep thinking of a name, and that name is Micropole. I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure you're familiar with Mike. Micropole is the co-founder of Vitamin Water, the co-founder of Body Armor. He's a pretty well-known figure in the beverage industry, one of the most successful beverage entrepreneurs of all time. And I sat down with him a while back, and I think I asked him when he was getting into Body Armor, why are you doing this again? Because you had already made quite a bit of money with Vitamin Water. You're quite successful. You're bought and sold Pirate's Booty. You got horses. You're set. Don't worry about this. Like, why are you getting back to this crazy business? And I think what he tried to articulate and what he did articulate is that the excitement, the goal of being the best at something was driving him, and he was obsessed with this idea of knocking Gatorade off its perch with Body Armor, creating a sports drink brand that wouldn't settle for bronze, as he said, that was going for gold, nothing less. And I see a lot of the same Rapolian kind of attributes of David in that you have said, our goal is to become the number one protein bar in America. That's a very lofty and ambitious goal, and one that might make you pull every strand of hair out of your head. But true or false? I mean, you got to have number one as your target if you want to be successful.
True. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like yeah, it's competitive. You gotta want to win. So yeah, true.
Of late, I've heard a lot of investors talk about the idea of building a 20, 30, $50 million brand and it being something that is achievable and something that should be targeted versus trying to be the category leader or be distributed in all 50 states. I mean, why is it so important to be the best?
Like if David isn't 4 times the size of RXbar, it's a failure, in my view. So why? Like, I don't know. It's about winning. It's about moving things forward, making customers happy, bringing innovations to market. Like winning's fun. Like, I don't know, why else would you do it? You don't do things for second place. So
Winning is fun. Winning is fun. And I love winning. And I love the competition. And a lot of people might say, well, entrepreneurship isn't about the end result. It's about the journey. But, the end result is what you're chasing, right? But does it make you happy?
winning, yeah, winning makes me happy for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll ask this question. Again, I think I might know the answer, but true or false, entrepreneurship is about finding happiness.
No.
It's false. Okay.
Also, yeah. Happiness is irrelevant.
Happiness is irrelevant. Okay. You're the second person I've spoken with this year who has said something similar to that, or at least, that has the same kind of mindset when it comes to happiness. It was Jay Shetty, who is the well-known self-help expert and the co-founder of a sparkling tea brand named said called Juni, Juni. And he said happiness is overrated. Now you can listen to the interview to hear him expound on that, but it sounds like you're of a similar mindset.
Yeah, like yeah, it's irrelevant for entrepreneurship. Yeah, I'm not, yeah, I don't really care about it.
But don't you want to be happy when you're doing what you're doing?
I mean, I think I would say it should be fun. Like, I think you should have a sense of humor at work. Like, it should be fun, but I don't, through the journey, I think happiness is irrelevant. Like, um, I don't, winning, like serving and winning and achieving goals. I guess, yeah, that outcome could make you happy, but it could also make you, I don't know, doesn't, I just don't think of it as an emotion that that is, I apply to entrepreneurship, It's actually quite the opposite. Like, your expectation should be, it's like misery.
Oh dear. People are going to be listening to this. Go
Yeah, it's
ahead.
like, well, it's just like it's like a better expectation because it's hard. There's failure, there's stress, there's rejection, there's tough conversations, it's emotional. It's there's trade-offs, like intellectually stressful or demanding. So I don't, if you want to be happy, like I think there's other things you could do. Like, I don't know. There's other things you can do to make you happy.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Um, 4 times. You want David to be 4 times the size of RXbar, otherwise it's going to be a failure. You know, there is a business strategy, there is a plan, I'm sure. But how far out, do you have to think about getting to that end goal?
The good thing, like the TAM, like the market's pretty defined, right? So I think some of the work we're doing at David is that I'm excited to, and we're looking to do, is to expand the actual addressable market. Um, and so, um, I mean, I look out 6 years, 7 years at a time. And yeah, we want to not just sort of, I think we're really focused on growing the market too, not just sort of taking share. And so we're trying to bring, because you'll talk to customers and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm not a protein bar person," or you'll hear that quite a bit. And we
Mm-hmm.
heard this at RXbar too, but we're hearing that a lot. And they're like, "We're not a protein bar consumer, but I love this product. I love David." And that's to me is the ultimate sign of that you're creating value and doing something right. So um, we're really focused on like consumer surplus and expanding the market, like growing the category.
It certainly seems like you are when you are comparing on your website David to other protein bars. You're also comparing David to boiled cod, which is kind of eye opening to see. I assume that means you're trying to convert folks who would look at boiled cod as a good source of protein and saying, hey, instead of eating this bland fish, you can have our tasty blueberry pie protein bar.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like broadly, I think about if you look at the competition just as the category or your peers in the category, I think it's a bit too narrow sometimes because you have to look at like how are consumers shopping, how are they thinking, what are they eating, um, and there's a world where we're actually competing with the banana, we're competing with um, RTD shakes, protein shakes, like we look at it pretty broadly. And um, yeah, so I think because I think Americans in the future are going to be demanding and getting more protein than they are today. Um, and so I think just in a good position to to help people achieve that.
Peter, I am so happy that we've had this opportunity. Thank you so much for taking time. I just have one more true or false question. Again, RX Bar, just a remarkable success, 4 years, $600 million exit, but there's more to be done, clearly, with David. Um, a term or a sentence I've seen associated with the brand is finish your masterpiece. True or false? David is your masterpiece, and you'll be done with CPG after all is said and done.
False.
False.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm an addict. False. No, I mean I always need a job. I like to work. So yeah, hopefully I can build David for as long as I'm capable of it. But I'll always the devil's the idle mind is the devil's workshop, and I always need a job. So um, I won't ever stop.
I got to tell you, you have a very specific way of knowing who you are and accepting it and incorporating it into your businesses. And I think it's fabulous. This will be a bonus, true or false question. I think investors, and as I mentioned, you're an investor in Latani Ventures. Um, Investors sometimes, I think, look at founders and look for similar qualities in them. Um, do you do the same, true or false? You have to find a founder who at least has a similar approach to business to invest in their company.
Yeah, I absolutely. Because if you don't, there's like a cultural thing that's off, like an expectation. So um, I always looked for like really competitive, um, humble and confident, stubborn, flexible, um, like kind of willing to die before the company fails, sort of that grit that's really important. And someone who's like burned the ships. It's like really important. But yeah, I mean, I'm way better I'm way better in the arena, so I don't really enjoy it because it's hard. On the investor side, it's actually hard to be able to get to know someone and evaluate them. You don't really have enough time. So, but yeah, when I was investing, that's absolutely. I wanted to find the warrior type entrepreneurs that were just super committed, um, coachable, wanted to learn, grow, and and those are the traits I kind of see in myself. So, um, and I'm obviously biased for those.
Yeah, well, looking at the list of invested brands, or the brands that you've invested in, I know many of these founders, if not all of them, and I would say that they are the kind of people that would
Yeah,
do whatever they could to help their businesses scale.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. As I mentioned, Peter, I mean, it's an honor to be speaking with you, or to have this opportunity, and I'm so excited for you and for the future of David. This is a remarkable brand, and bold in its approach to ingredients, package design, and ambition. I'm really excited to see where it all goes from here. Hopefully, you'll achieve the success that you're looking for. But we're going to be following all along the way, and definitely want to stay in touch.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Peter.